Hello everyone and welcome to Volleyball Essentials, the positions. Again, I'm going to have a very basic approach to this tutorial, so please don't be offended if you find some of this information a bit rudimentary because I'm trying to present this to volleyball players or people interested in volleyball from all different backgrounds and different levels of experience. So to start with, let me just give you a brief breakdown of these plastic figurines that I am going to use to represent the players. Let's take the setter in this case. So just in case, this player right here, these are the buttocks right here, these humps. These are the feet, the right foot, the left foot. This is the back with the labels on their backs. And this is the front or face of the players. And of course, all of them will be facing in that direction, facing the opposite team, which is how you play volleyball, of course. So now let's introduce the players. In volleyball, you can have 6 players on the court playing a rally, hence the 6 different positions. So let's go ahead and introduce them. So here we have, hi Lakeisha, here's Lakeisha. Hey Marcus. Hi Victoria. Hi Alejandro. Hello Scott. And there we have them. 6 players. This player right here on the opposite side with the dots is a player from the opposite team, which I will use as a reference from time to time. And I will also use this figurine if I ever need to give a demonstration on this side. So that's just an extra token. So let's focus on these 6 positions. Now, a couple of things that I would like to point out to you. The green players are the hitters. The orange players are the blockers. The red player is the setter. And last but not least, this funky player right here with a completely different color is the libero, one of the most recent positions introduced to volleyball. And this player right here is the one that makes our parents, grandpapas, friends, acquaintances that come to see us play time and time again and may not be as familiar with the volleyball rules and just the nature of volleyball in general ask, why does this player have a completely different color uniform than the rest of the players? Reason being, because this player is the libero. I will go into details about the libero in another segment, but suffice it to say that the reason why they wear a completely different color is because the volleyball rules state that the libero must wear a contrasting jersey from the rest of his or her teammates. Contrasting being the operative word. In other words, if your team players have a blue uniform, for example, the libero cannot wear another blue uniform that's either 2 shades darker or 2 shades lighter and say, that's a different color uniform, because the referee or the referees will call him or her out on it, as well as the coach, and say you cannot play volleyball because that uniform color does not comply with the rules of the uniform code for the libero. So it's not just about a fashion statement, although it can be. It's a requirement. It's a rule. Let's go ahead and arrange the players a little bit differently here. Okay, so we'll put these players right here and these right here. And then we'll put these players right here. Okay, now if you notice, it may not be as noticeable. I also intentionally used these plastic figurines for height purposes as well. These players right here, the hitters and the blockers, typically tend to be average height or taller. For men, I would say 5'8", 5'9", or taller. For women, I would say maybe 5'6", 5'7", or taller. These players right here tend to be average height and or shorter. Again, for men, I would say 5'7", 5'6", or shorter. Definitely the setter, the libero. The opposite, that may be probably the most subjective one. I know some of you may be thinking, well, no, Colbert, the opposite always has to be a tall player because one of the opposite's main responsibilities is to block the ball from our right front, which, if you think about it, is the other team's left front or outside. where the outside hitters will be hitting, a key position for hitting. Therefore, this player has to be tall. But I also feel that the opposite, being the setter's assistant, quote unquote, also has to be good at setting. So you can have an opposite player who is average height and do a really good job at it. So that's my take on it. Feel free to disagree if you think that the opposite always has to be a really tall player. Okay, so let's put our players back where they belong. And then this one goes here. This one, sorry, you're outside of the court for now. Mr. Libero, setter, opposite hitter 2. We'll block right on, and here we go. So now we're going to go through the positions. This player right here is the setter, hence the label S. This player right here is called the opposite hitter. The reason why I have an OH1, because this is the opposite hitter number 1, the primary or the strongest opposite hitter. This player right here in position number 3 is the middle blocker number 1. Again, the strongest middle blocker of the 2. This player right here is the opposite. This player right here is outside hitter number 2. And if I said the wrong thing, this one is outside hitter number 1, not opposite hitter. Sorry, I apologize if I was mistaken at first. And this one is the middle blocker number 2. Now, you may be asking yourself, Colbert, outside hitter? Outside of what? Opposite hitter? Opposite of whom? Of what? Volleyball is so confusing. I hate volleyball, Colbert. Well, not necessarily. A couple of things that I would like to perhaps help you with. I personally like to use song references to be able to identify the key positions and the side in which they go. So, for example, for the outside hitters, I like to refer to Beyoncé's song. To the left, everything you own in a box to the left. Okay, so I'm not the best singer, but anyways, she's kicking the guy out. Therefore, the guy has to go outside. Therefore, if you think about it, this player right here, to the left, outside. To the left, outside. And if this outside hitter goes on the outside or the left side of the court, naturally all the other positions fall into place. This opposite hitter, which is also known as the right side hitter, has to go on the right. And needless to say, middle blockers go in the middle. So outside hitter number 1, outside hitter number 2 always go on the left side of the court because they are really good hitters and they also have to be good at bump receiving the ball from the serve receive. Another thing that I wanted to mention to you. Even though this player right here is the only one that gets the official title of opposite, technically speaking, in volleyball, all the other players have an opposite. So in volleyball, you have 3 sets, again, 6 players, each set of players that play opposite each other. This opposite hitter plays opposite this one, opposite hitter number 2. This middle blocker plays opposite of middle blocker number 2. I'm sorry, this outside hitter plays opposite this one, outside hitter number 2. Middle blocker number 1, opposite middle blocker number 2. And the setter plays opposite the opposite, or the opposite plays opposite the setter. And there you have it. And for that to be remembered, I like to refer to Paula Abdul's song. We come together when opposites attract. So always remember, in volleyball, there are always opposite players that play opposite each other so that as you rotate, one will always be in the front and one will always be in the back. So just to give you an example, we take these 2 outside hitters and as they rotate, we go ahead and have them playing opposite. Boom, back to their beginning positions. That's how it goes. And to conclude this video, I just wanted to give you my take on it, because some of you who are starting volleyball, perhaps you are a teenager really looking to get into the high school volleyball team and you've never played before, you're really interested and you're wondering, well, what is the position that I should play? First and foremost, of course, confer with your coach or coaches or other experienced volleyball players, but I would say play to your strengths. This is a team. This is not singles tennis match where it's just one player. All 6 players rise to the occasion and fall down together. That said, I will give you a couple of scenarios. If you are, for example, someone who is very communicative, someone who is kind of a leader, someone who is really good at setting the ball, and someone who really likes to hustle for the ball and run all over the court to get that second hit as much as you can, and someone who is, average height, perhaps consider being the setter. The setter is the leader of the pack. The setter makes or breaks the volleyball game at any time. The setter is like the quarterback of football. This position, along with the opposite, are usually, or right side hitter, are usually the highest paid volleyball players in international volleyball. So consider being one of those. If you are someone who is, for example, a really good hitter, but not necessarily the best hitter, you're a solid hitter, and someone who is also a really good setter, maybe not the best setter, but still a very good setter, consider then, and especially if you're left-handed, consider being the opposite, because again, the opposite, when you go to your position, will be hitting from the right side. So consider that. If you are someone who is really good at, bump receiving the ball, when this team right here, when they're all the way over here, and they go ahead and they serve the ball over, and then that's called a bump receive, or you're really good at digging the ball, meaning that when one of these players goes ahead and from the attack zone, they go ahead and boom, spikes that ball, and you're really good at getting that ball, that's called digging, then also, if you don't want to bother with being in the attack zone, either jumping to spike the ball or blocking the ball, maybe you have weak ankles, or you just don't like that at all, but what you really prefer is to receive the ball and play the defense area, consider being a libero, especially if you are short or average height. Average to shorter players tend to have a much easier time being grounded and really just shifting and being able to receive that ball much better than really tall players. Again, this is a generalization, not a rule all across the board. And if you are someone who is really good at blocking the ball, you're really tall, and you are very quick at moving, on your feet, left to right, shuffling left to right and right to left, blah, 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 and who almost barely ever gets called on a net violation, then consider being a middle blocker. And last but not least, outside hitters are really good hitters. They're the primary hitters from this left area, and they're also good at receiving the ball. But they're the ones that most of the time the setter will be setting the ball to. So that concludes our session on the positions, and I'm going to go on now to the most important segment, which is the 5-1 rotation rules. Thank you very much.